Hey, you're wide receiver Khalil Shakir, right?
I sure am, kid. Here, go long.
Whoa! You're pretty good at football, man.
And you guys are pretty good at pizza.
Oh, sick. Dude.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. It's Ravens week. It's the divisional round. Let's bring the whole group in. We got Mike Bunt. We got Mike Partham. We got Carson Hayek. Boys, we're here. It's the game of the year, round 3 for the Bills. The one everyone's been waiting for, Bills-Ravens. And I think the Bills are just a draw. I think that, Mike, as if we would talk about a wrestling term, Partham, the Bills are the draw right now. And everybody's been waiting for this matchup. I've been terrified of it. Bunt's been terrified of it. We've all had our worries about it, but we're going to face it all together this week, Sunday at 6:30. So how are we feeling this week, Mike Bunt? How you doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm a little nervous. I don't want to give away too much about how I feel about this game before we get the show really going, but I feel excited. It's a chance for the Bills to make their mark and get back to the AFC Championship for the first time since 2020. So can't wait for this game. This is where it gets real. I honestly took the wild card round for granted. A lot of people told me I was stupid for it. Well, guess what, guys? The Bills dominated. So now we're on to the real football and the games that really matter going forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't anything happen over the weekend before this big matchup of the century? I mean, was there anything of note? Did the game happen or something?
We're over that. We're over that. I was going to say Victory Wednesday, but yeah.
You know, let's just summarize it. The Broncos, they didn't have any tight ends. They didn't have any running backs to speak of. They had one receiver to fear. They had got behind us for one drive, the very first drive, and Nervous Mafia obviously reared its head. And it was the Bills' MO. It was a slow first half. We picked up the pace in the second half, just ran away with it. They had a formidable pass rush, but Josh Allen just does his magic act and pulls rabbits out of hats and throws to the back of the end zone with, inches to spare. At the end of the day, let's just say the Broncos are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were.
So let's just put them in our rearview mirror.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew it.
Well, yeah, that's a predictable minus 250 out of Parkey right there for that clip to be played tonight. Easy layup cash bet in the parlay tonight for the Parkey reel. But hey, that's a good win. Bills dismantle the Broncos. Slow start like we talked about. That's their MO. They turned 10 points into 30 points really, really fast. Second half team, they've really been that for majority of the season. And hey, now's the real test. How can you overcome a team that's dominated you earlier in the season? They're a matchup nightmare. A lot of people would agree with that statement. So now it's the time to capitalize on a mistake. The Bills are healthier this week. Different team.
All right, we got full Carson. I was gonna give him a second,
another negative 250 is Carson having audio issues. Sorry, buddy.
That's all right. We're playing all the hits tonight, guys. That's all it is. We're coming in. It's the biggest game of the year this week, at least. We got the Ravens in front of us, divisional round, a legit 50-50 matchup, basically in Vegas right now. It is on. Is it still on ESPN, Mike? You are the ESPN. Listen, I need to give Mike Bunt credit here because Mike Bunt is the ESPN matchup predictor king. I know what I'm seeing it all over. I've been started going to it now all the time. Like now it's like built into my habit. So thank you for that. Or we got Carson back here though. Carson?
Are we better now?
We're clean.
Check. We are better now.
Jesus.
All right, because my computer did the exact same thing last week. Good when we're talking before the show starts. Shits the bed when I start talking. But anyway, yeah, true test. See if they capitalize on the mistakes. Different team than week 4 for the Bills. So I'm looking forward to this. If you're not a Bills fan or a Ravens fan, this is like the matchup galore here of the season. So you got to love this if you're a football fan. Bills fan, you're a little nervous, but hey, let's go. It's time to correct our wrongs here in the past.
Yeah, well said. I can't remember the point I was on before we got Carson back in here. So let's get into, are there any other thoughts on the Broncos game? Anything to take away, or was that just exactly kind of, we're good here? Like we saw everything we needed to see, talk about. Like there's not a lot to talk about except for the fact that the slow start was concerning, I guess, offensively, but it was mostly red zone issues. And we saw that you know, it was the strength of the Broncos coming into the game. They were the third ranked defense, red zone defense coming in. So they were able to flex on that a little bit, but they just didn't have the firepower. One big deep play is their touchdown. Other than that, Bo Nix was in a blender the whole game. Shout out to Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich. They didn't let them. Sean Payton didn't even trust Bo Nix in the second half. Like, he was not even letting him kind of let loose or do anything to hurt them in that game. So it was a impressive all around dominant victory once they got rolling in the second half there. But now we're on to the Ravens. There's a lot of places to go to here with this game. There's a lot of storylines going into it between obviously the big headline storyline, the MVP race, and Lamar versus Josh. But there's a lot of interesting. These teams, in my estimation, Mike, at the very least, are very similar, honestly. And we saw it play out the way they want to play football play out. Now they're going to attack each other differently, but these teams both just want to run the shit out of the ball and dominate the time of possession and dominate the trenches. Now the Ravens were able to do it through manipulation through the read option last week. They were just like, we're just going to read option the Steelers to death. I don't know why the Steelers were just said, we're not going to pay attention to Lamar Jackson for the first quarter of this game, and it didn't make any sense. They had a lot of guys that were really irresponsible in their fits and the option and everything. So I hope the Bills are ready for that, because the Ravens are going to come at them with it. And the Bills, conversely, just said, we have the best offensive line in the league. We're just going to bowl you over eventually in this game. And I know I've said that for games in the past this year, where the Bills didn't look particularly impressive during the game. The Chiefs game is one of these where they did look impressive in that game, but it was like they were just going to grind on teams and say, you're not going to last with us. Like, we will just play our game for 4 quarters, and halfway through the third quarter, you're going to give up because we're going to lean on you that much. That's what happened last week. That's what the Bills are going to want to do against Ravens. It's pretty much strength on strength, I think, offensively, Mike, in this game going forward. But what do you expect? What are you looking at? And take it any which way you want to go with this matchup. But that's the thing I'm looking to the most.
So, looking at this matchup, you want me to start offense? You want me to start defense? You do
offense? I think start offensively, because the Bills' strength is going to be on that offensive line. We're gonna need Allen to make a lot of plays, probably off schedule. This defense has been impressive the back half of the year for the Ravens. So what do you think the Bills are? The Bills going to be able to run their game plan, like the game plan they ran last week, and ultimately the vision we know Sean McDermott and Joe Brady want for this offense? Will they be able to be on schedule against the Ravens this week?
I see no reason why not. They just went up against one of the top defenses in the NFL, and they put up over 470 yards and 31 points. So I really don't think there's any defense that can really shut down the Bills' offense when they're executing at the level they expect to be at. That's just the NFL right now. The rules favor offense. The top quarterbacks are almost unstoppable when they're clicking. The only thing that really can get in the way is the Bills' self, in my opinion. It's the same way with Baltimore. I don't really think there's anything the Bills' defense really can do to really slow down Baltimore. It's, will Baltimore slow themselves down? Will the Bills slow themselves down? I think you go into this game, you try to kind of stick to what is guiding you here. You want to continue running the ball effectively and using that to open up the pass game. The Ravens do have some vulnerabilities in the secondary at times. They've allowed over 244 yards passing per game, but if you go into the advanced metrics and check their EPA and other things like that, they're really not awful in the secondary. So they're still like around 10th or so in a lot of those numbers. So even though the volume wise, they're allowing pass yards on a per play basis, they're not doing that badly. And they do have guys back there. But I think the Bills' offense is at its best when it's balanced. And the big reason why is I don't think the Bills have enough playmakers in the passing game that are truly elite to where they can just take advantage of secondaries an entire game when teams are playing to prevent or slow down the pass. I think the Bills need to run the ball effectively so teams stack the box and give the Bills looks that are more advantageous to pass out of. And if you look at some of the numbers this year, the Bills have faced stacked boxes at a higher rate than they have during the entire Josh Allen era. And that's something that in the playoffs has kind of killed the Bills at times, where when, like, you think back to the Cincinnati game, the Bills weren't able to run against a light box at that point. Cincinnati didn't really need to make many adjustments, and then the Bills' passing game suffered as a result. When you're playing against better defenses, it's harder to really do your thing. I think that the Bills stick to what they have been lately, and that's get James Cook going, get Ty Johnson involved in the pass game out of the backfield, throw it to Shakir on short screens, and then continue to let players like Amari Cooper, Mac Hollins, Keon Coleman make the occasional grab. I think they'll be in a good position to score some points. You're muted, Jake.
Mute monster.
Parthy, how are you? Yep, got me. Parthy, how are you feeling about the offense?
You have a little bit of that maniac syndrome right there with the mute monster. Anyway, so all right. So overall, this game looks a little bit better than what happened earlier this year. Just a few little bit quick notes. The Bills so far have actually lost 3 straight divisional playoff games, and as of yet, no team in NFL history has lost 4 straight divisional playoff games. There have been teams that have lost other levels of the playoffs consecutively as much or more. Marvin Lewis actually lost 5 straight wild card games, and we all know about the Bills and those Super Bowls, of course. Let's not remind us. The Bills are home playoff underdogs for the first time in their history, at least since the 1970 merger. So there's something to put on the bulletin board. Obviously, I hope Sean McDermott puts that on the bulletin board, puts Lamar Jackson first-team All-Pro, Josh Allen second-team All-Pro on that bulletin board, and all the Michael Jordan, took it personally, motivating factors that they can bring. And let's keep in mind the Ravens, they still have a propensity for blowing double-digit leads, especially in the fourth quarter. They have the most since in the last 5 years, and that includes their the Bills' 23-20 win in 2022. So Lamar Jackson does have a bit of a history in the playoffs of not coming through. He's only had 2 road playoff games, and those were both in January 2021. One of them was here in Buffalo. But he has yet to throw a touchdown in a road playoff game, although he hasn't had many road playoff games to speak of, not unlike Patrick Mahomes himself. But another interesting tidbit about what he hasn't had to face, along with Derrick Henry, is the game time temperature is going to be 16 degrees Fahrenheit. Derrick Henry has never played in a game colder than 22 degrees. Lamar himself has never played in a game colder than 27 degrees. Now, that's a bit of an unknown. That's not like, the Miami Dolphins or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a below 500 record in games under 32 or 40 degrees or whatever it is. So for all we know, it might not be a problem. But there was a little tidbit that I saw just on Twitter recently. Lamar tried throwing in practice with gloves and said he was not very good at it. So if he's going to try and, keep his hands warm in this, very chilly, it might be chilly kind of weather, as Steve Tasker would say, he's probably not going to want to favor gloves. So he's going to have to barehand it. And who knows how that's going to work out. But Lamar versus the Bills overall, he's only had 4 games, averaging 200 total yards, 117 of them passing. He's had 7 touchdowns, but 5 total turnovers. So, and the Ravens this season, when they've been not as good, when they've been losing the teams unexpectedly, from what the Ravens prognosticators are saying, it involves a lot of penalties. It involves them getting behind early, not being able to run the ball with Derrick Henry. And when that happens, Lamar is known for starting to push. He's going to throw to deeper targets. He's going to take more chances than take the easier ones. And one of the things that's going to probably get taken away from him is Zay Flowers is injured and did not practice today on Wednesday, and said to have an outside chance of playing. And that could be taking away one of Lamar's safety nets this season. This game, at least. Yards per pass on Twitter says because of that, you could see higher man coverage from the Bills and higher rate of 5-man pressures trying to get to Lamar. But speaking of pressuring Lamar, 3 guys that we didn't see, as I think we've mentioned earlier this season, Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Taron Johnson. Matt Milano is finally coming into his own. He's knocking off the rust. You saw him chase down Bo Nix, and that's a great sign for his ability to spy on Lamar and close the gap if Lamar wants to roll out to one side or the other. Bernard, he's the guy that's known for getting the defense into proper formation, getting guys set where they're supposed to be, or adjusting it based on whatever the offense is showing. But the question I have for you guys is, and I'll go back to my evaluation of the Bills offense versus the Ravens defense is, should the Bills keep Teron Johnson in on most of the downs, even if they look to be running downs, or should they go with a more base defense with 3 linebackers? I'll put that to you first, Carson.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I was just about to bring that up. Defensively, it's a really hard question because a tendency for the Bills, as we all know, they love the nickel defense. And the thing when it comes to game planning is finding tendency breakers when it comes to your opponent. So that base 4-3 or 3-4 defense, however the Bills may choose to do it this week, I think they're going to have to show it eventually. You're not going to – Teron Johnson, I love him, but you're going to want to have that extra weight on the field, adding that extra linebacker in. I think if you can throw Dorian Williams out there, Matt Milano, and Terrell Bernard, I think that's going to be probably your best chance to defend the run game and the physicality that the Ravens have. So I would like to see Teron Johnson. He's a phenomenal tackler for a secondary piece in your slot nickel back. So I think he's going to definitely play his fair share. But on obvious rundowns or maybe your second down and 8s or certain situations like that, I think he's a guy you probably would like to have off the field. If not, he's a great tackler. I'd love to see him stay on the field because many people have referred to him as a linebacker just playing that slot corner role. So it's a really difficult question to answer straight up. It all kind of depends situationally. But I think the Bills are going to have to find a way to break their own tendency when it comes to schematically game planning against Baltimore. And they're going to have to find a way to stack the box, get your 3 best linebackers on the field for majority of the game in certain situations. So for that to happen, I would say probably Teron Johnson may not see as many snaps this week as weeks past, but there's still 100% faith, at least from me, that he can make a play when called upon because we did not see him week 4. I don't know. What would you say, Mike?
So the more I've been reading stuff, the more I think the Bills are going to stick to what has gotten them here.
Yep.
I do think you're going to see a few moments of base with 3 linebackers, maybe in obvious running situations. But Cover 1 did share some nice stats during the course of the week that show the Bills are actually pretty solid at stopping the run in nickel compared to most nickel defenses across the league, and that it really doesn't have a huge difference in the yards per carry allowed versus what they are when they're in their base. It's tough because, you think about it, if you're in a base, Lamar is then probably going to just take advantage of you in the air. So you're kind of in trouble either way. That's what scares me so much about this Baltimore Ravens team is that they really have an answer to whatever you want to throw at them defensively. And a lot of people have been saying stuff like, well, you got to stop Derrick Henry first and foremost. Well, that's easier said than done, number one. And number two, I am a big believer that Derrick Henry has helped elevate Lamar Jackson, but I believe Lamar Jackson has played a bigger role in elevating Derrick Henry than vice versa. The thing that when I look at this Ravens offense that scares the hell out of me is that they have the perfect combination of power and speed. So you have Lamar with the ability to get out to the outside on any given play. So you have to have your defensive ends contained. So they have to know where to be standing. You need your linebackers to have proper leverage. So you're scared of him getting outside of you. But then if you get too far wide, Derrick Henry is going to take advantage of those holes. He's going to run right through you. So right there, you already have dilemmas in the run game where I don't know how you can stop them over the course of 60 minutes. You almost have to choose, am I going to go all out on stopping Henry or am I going to go all out in stopping Lamar? I would say stop the quarterback because he's the one that's going to have the ball in his hands more. And then even if you do stop the run game, they have the top separation in the league in terms of their receivers. Even if Zay Flowers is out, you got Rashad Bateman, you got Mark Andrews, you got a bunch of different guys in the backfield. You have Justice Hill. So the thing that scares me is it's almost like when you're going up against the Bills offense, you really can't stop them. You more so hope to contain them. They're going to get the yardage, but you hope to force them to kick field goals. You hope that maybe they're sloppy and their penalties kill a drive, or that they have turnovers that help the Bills defense get off the field. But realistically, this is one of those games where Bills fans, if they're expecting like the Bills, like, oh, they have to hold them to under 20 points, like that's not really realistic. Like that. Like,
listen, Mike. The other day, I've talked to Maniac twice this week about this game, and he said to me, would you hit the button if 31 points for the Bills offense, would you hit that button right now? And I said no. I'm not taking 31. Like I would take 30, maybe 35. I would start thinking about the button. And it's because of everything you're saying. They're not going to stop this team. The key is going to be stopping them in the red zone. Red zone defense is going to decide this game for both teams because both offenses are going to be able to move the ball between the 20s, I think, with ease. Truly believe that. And third and long. And that's what I was going to say. The Henry is one thing. I think if you keep Henry if Henry doesn't have 2 carries for 100 yards at some point in this game, like as long as he doesn't have the 60, 70, 80-yard run in this game, he might get 100 yards and you could still win this game because he is going to be a force. I truly believe that. What worries me the most about the Bills against this is exactly what you were saying, Mike, is Lamar through the air, regardless of if Flowers is there, because the third and long defense, I think it's 29th in the NFL during the season. They're on third down and 31st or 32nd on 3rd and 7 and more, something like that. And the guys who are going to kill the Bills, it's going to be right down the middle. It's going to be Likely and Andrews against Rapp and Hamlin. That's the thing that worries me the most is third down. Lamar, if that initial rush doesn't get to Lamar and get in his way, him improvising and finding one of those guys deep down the middle or even down the sidelines like he has all year. And I don't trust those guys in those matchups for a whole game with the way Lamar's been playing and how accurate he's been. And it's just going to be so hard to defend them. So I think I said earlier, the best offense is a good defense, or the best defense is a good offense. Like you score 40, aim to score 40 in this game. Like this game should be the Lions game. That's the way you have to think about it if you're the Buffalo Bills. Because I don't think any team is going to be able to stop this offense, honestly, this year in the Ravens offense. I think you have to outscore them in a game.
See, I normally would agree with you on that, but I'm telling you, man, there's a few things that are interesting right now. One, the spread of this game, the Bills being 1-point underdogs, because realistically, I thought it would be more. Because I have this whole theory: when you are an underdog by 1 to 2.5 points against a team that the narrative is they're going to wipe the floor with you or they're going to beat you. The national narrative, if you check any media member, is that Lamar's the MVP and that the Ravens are the biggest threat to the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl in the AFC. So you're seeing all the picks. Everybody's picking the Ravens for the most part. Yeah, there's a few people picking the Bills, but like the average football fan that is unbiased in this game is picking the Ravens. But then why is the line only 1 point, 1.5 points?
And one more thing, Mike, to add to your point. On covers, at least, according to covers, 51% of the handle on the Buffalo Bills at that +1. So keep going.
So that's an interesting thing too. Like I've been tracking teams that are -1 to -2.5. Like in college, my school was 2.5 point, 2 point underdogs a few times. UB was at one point. Minnesota was 2.5 point favorite against the Rams. When you see these lines, a lot of times those are the teams that win the game. And it's not normally even win the game. It's a team that's the underdog. Sometimes they win convincingly, like the Rams over Minnesota. Like there's been several examples. Even think about the Rams versus Buffalo. The Bills are 3.5 point favorites on the road in LA after beating the 49ers and the Chiefs. Everybody would say that line is weird. The Rams were like 7-6 at the point. Didn't make sense. And then the Rams come out and win. And normally when there's a line that is very close like that and it doesn't line up with reality or like what the narrative is, normally that's when you have an upset. So I think that is an interesting thing. And I think the over-under might be like 51.5 points. I find that interesting too, if that is indeed the case. I don't know if you can check that for me, Jake. But the reason why that would be interesting is everybody says this is going to be a shootout. Well, if the over-under is 51.5 points, that doesn't really indicate a shootout. That says something more along the lines of like a 27-24 or like a something along that lines. And what I'm thinking is going to happen, you're going to see both teams running the ball quite a bit. That's going to kill clock. You're going to have long, sustained drives. And I actually think this is going to be a lower scoring game than what a lot of people are thinking. People are talking like this is going to be 35-32. I think this is more likely like a 27-24. Because whenever you have an over-under set at 51.5 with two quarterbacks that people think are the two favorites for the MVP, that's when it's going to be an under. And people are like, whoa, how did this happen? So I find that stuff interesting. And as much as we could talk about the Bills' offense, I'm really not worried about the Bills' offense because what I'll tell you is this. If the Bills' offense doesn't execute in this game and they have a no-show, well, then they have no chance, and we're going to have to talk about Josh Allen falling short in a big moment. But I'm really intrigued to see if the Bills' defense has anything up their sleeves because the point that Mike made earlier, they had no Bernard, no Milano. They had who else was hurt in that game? Taylor Rapp got hurt. Von Miller was suspended. You had no Taron Johnson. Like
No
that's
Jordan Phillips either.
yeah,
Not
like
that
that's,
counts that
those
much,
are
but
significant. Those are significant players not playing in a game. And the Bills have changed a lot from that point in time. This could be the game where the complementary football that McDermott has always been talking about is what gets you a win. This is the type of game you need that complementary football. You don't need your defense to shine. You don't need everything to be perfect, but you need to play within yourself, play efficient, execute, and don't get in your own way. If one of these teams has 2+ turnovers, it's going to be almost impossible for them to win.
Yeah, for sure.
Just checking on that over under. Yes, 51.5.
Yes.
The Bills money line is -105. Ravens -115.
interesting. Definitely interesting stuff. I mean, as far as offense goes, the only concern I have is the Ravens' run defense, given they haven't played the best run offenses in the past 3 weeks, but they've been lights out, and it's not even been close. In the last 3 games, including playoffs, the Ravens have allowed 47.3 rush yards a game, which is by far, I believe, by like 14 yards, the best in the league. And yes, they've played with a lead for a majority of that time, but for me, the Bills' run game has to at least keep the Baltimore defense thinking that they can run the football to a certain extent. I'm not expecting a game where what we just had against Denver, we're able to run the football, and in the first quarter, we set the tone. Our offensive line's driving James Cook 10 yards down the field. So I'm not expecting that. I think Baltimore is going to come out and try to blitz the hell out of us again because that's what they did week 4, and that was really the one game where the Bills' offensive line kind of fell flat on its face. They weren't able to pick up a ton of blitzes. Josh got pressured on 44%, I think, of his dropbacks, and that just can't happen if we're going to have any chance of winning this football game. So to me, it really comes down to the offensive line. They've been phenomenal all year. I think they're going to be just fine again. But this is a time where you really got to take a peek at some of those disguised blitzes. And if I'm Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator, I'm sending the house again here at certain situations because it worked the first time. Josh has been lights out all year, but it seemed for whatever the reason, the Ravens were able to have success against that. And I think with an offense with Amari Cooper now, Khalil Shakir fully healthy, Dalton Kincaid, Knox, just a full load of offense, possibly without Ray Davis. I don't think Baltimore can get away with that. Again, the Bills know how to answer that. They've won blitz this year. They've been lights out. So for me, that the only concern comes in that run game. Like you said, Bunt, the teams love stacking the box this year against the Bills, and that run game provides opportunities in the passing game. So the run game has to at least show some glimmer of hope for me. Otherwise, I would be a little bit concerned with this offense. But offensively, I think we're going to be just fine. They can't overthink themselves.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What can the Ravens carry over from that game and have success? Yeah. And what do the Bills adjust to what they saw in that game? Because you can't even really say, well, the Bills are struggling going into the Ravens game. They had scored 47 against Jacksonville the week before. They had 31 against the Dolphins before that, 34 against the Cardinals. But that was the beginning of a 3-week stretch where the Bills offense had their struggles. They struggled against Baltimore. Then they had a horrible performance against Houston. And then the Jets game, which was erratic, up and down, up and down. I think when teams do cover zero and they blitz against Josh Allen, most of the time that's a strategy for failure. When you blitz Josh Allen, you are normally setting yourself up for failure. Unless you are consistently getting to him and you're getting in his head. And I think that Baltimore game, the Bills were rattled because they were getting home. And at that point in time, that predated all the things that we've been feeling positive about the Bills offense. At that point in time, we still didn't really know who was going to be an impact on this receiving core.
Well, and Shakir got hurt in that game too, which definitely affected the game plan
in the first quarter
tenfold.
That had a huge impact. And then even think about it. I know this is everybody's bringing up this point, but they were still coming back into the game before the trick play just foiled them. If they end up getting a touchdown,
can't imagine the trick plays coming back in the play sheet.
So this is the hard part. Like when talking about like Ravens versus Bills, I think the Ravens are a way more talented roster overall than the Bills. I think they have way more high end talent. I think their ceiling is to be the best team in the league. But the Bills, I think what has been so special about them this year is that they play within themselves. They know their identity. And Josh playing smart and efficient is almost an unbeatable combination. But this is why I hate that this is a divisional round matchup, because this really feels like this is a AFC championship, or say they were in different conferences. It could be a Super Bowl matchup. It feels wrong that this is going to be a divisional round, because whoever loses is going to face the brunt of all these stupid narratives. And if the Bills lose, we're going to go back to the same things we've been talking about for the last 4 years. And it's just frustrating because I think we're looking at an unfair balance of top end talent in each conference. Like, sure, Philadelphia and Detroit are great teams, but neither of them have a tier 1 quarterback. You have 4 tier 1 quarterbacks in the NFL, and they all play in the AFC. And what that means for the Bills on any given year, they could be the second best team, they could be the best team, and they still have to get past Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson just to play for a chance to get to the Super Bowl. And to me, that's just really unfortunate because fans are going to kill them. But like ultimately, you get past this game, you then become like the odds-on Super Bowl favorite with Kansas City.
Yeah, to your point, Bunt, it's basically this generation's Brady, Manning, and Roethlisberger. Probably even more dense than that, I would say. My only concern about Derrick Henry is basically just don't let him off on the first play, because if you recall, the first play from scrimmage, first run, 87 yards to the house.
Yes.
And to that point, the Ravens have called runs on the first play of their offense in games 78% of the time. So, I mean, if you have Milano and Bernard in there and they can maintain gap integrity and, not go too far outside or inside, maybe we can fix that. I just want to comment a little bit on the Bills offense versus Ravens defense. As we mentioned, Amari Cooper had not yet joined. Even if he hasn't been statistically significant, he basically fits everybody into a much better roles out there. And the Ravens defense has to account for Amari out there. Khalil Shakir did get injured in the first quarter in that game. He did get a 52-yard pass in the third quarter, but when he came back in, but not much else. And he was hobbled for at least a week or two after that. The one thing about the Ravens defense, they were vulnerable that part of the year. And that's one thing that we thought the Bills were going to be able to take advantage of, but not so much in that game. But one thing that they have done is eliminate big plays by adjusting their safety personnel. One thing they did was Kyle Hamilton was being moved around. He was being a jack of all trades sort of guy, using him in blitzes and other things. Now they've simplified that. They've moved him back to a traditional safety, staying deep. It's simplifying things for the defense. It's cutting down on the miscommunication. So they're not as vulnerable to big plays as they were earlier in this year. Their defensive DVOA is actually 6th overall compared to the Bills' 11th. And offense is the Baltimore's offense is actually first in DVOA compared to the Bills' number 2 overall. So pretty good matchups on both sides of the ball. One little X factor to look out for. We thought we had problems with our kicker this season. Justin Tucker's been just as erratic as Tyler Bass. Both have missed 10 kicks going in. And talking about the weather earlier, how is the weather going to affect Justin Tucker specifically? Because actually the Bills have not been too hurt by Tyler Bass as much as we've been frustrated by him. every once in a while we think we can trust in them, and he just goes and misses an extra point. But the Bills are 7-1 when Tyler Bass misses a kick of any kind in a game, and they're 3-0 in one-score games when he misses a kick. The Ravens, on the other hand, they're 2-5 when Tucker misses a kick, and all of those have been one-score games. We just saw Will Lutz, who made 40-plus straight kicks before this wildcard game, dinging off the upright. And incidentally, Justin Tucker in the playoff meeting back in January 2021 was 1 for 3, and both of his misses were 40-plus yards, and both of them were dinged off uprights, left and right alike. So, I mean, this weather, whether it's you're talking about temperature, you're talking about wind gusts, I think, and Justin Tucker just not being himself this year, will Tyler Bass's experience with his own stadium give him an edge here, and and Justin Tucker might not be able to come through in those clutch red zone field goals if our red zone defense is able to hold. That's something I think we should be looking out for.
Remember, Tucker missed 2 against the Bills in the playoffs the last time.
In the divisional, too. And that was a crazy wind game, too. That was another one where the wind was whipping around the stadium. I remember that being a thing. Mike, Partham, you read my mind. I was literally typing in kicker stats here into my Google, and then you started talking about Justin Tucker. There are 2 losses this year in the last 2 months. They lost to the state of Pennsylvania. They lost to the Eagles and the Steelers. Tucker missed 2 kicks in both those games, and against the Eagles, he missed an extra point as well. So, and those games were a 5-point margin and a 2-point margin. Like, his kicking, really, this team could be 14-3 if it isn't for Justin Tucker failing them in those moments in this game. This is a 1-point margin. I think, Mike, you said it best. I think that was what I was going to get to, is the biggest thing is this game's going to come down to the kickers, and neither fan base is going to feel good when their guy goes up for the kick. As good as Bass has been, no one's going to feel confident about it, and Tucker hasn't been good, and his fan base has kind of lost all that hope in him, and he's been a roller coaster. So, and that's really what it could come down to.
One other thing that their fan base has lost confidence in, just go back to the Bills offense versus Ravens defense, and going back to the secondary, this butt never stops. Another guy that the Ravens fan base apparently is, done with is a cornerback, Brandon Stevens. He's apparently someone that other teams like to target. Just this past game against the Steelers, he gave up 6 catches for 74 yards on 9 targets. You go look up Brandon Stevens' name on social media. It's basically they're basically trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater or something like that. Some of them are saying maybe we should go to a certain old friend of ours, a guy by the name of Trey White. I don't know if you've heard of him. He actually only typically plays on their dime formations when they involve 4 cornerbacks. Only plays 20 to 40% of the snaps, but some of the nervous mafia out there are already picturing Trey White having a game-clinching interception, and that being the perfect, woe is me end to the Bills season. I don't want to see that happen. I don't know about you guys.
Trip and fall and give us a game-winning touchdown, and that's his gift to Buffalo. He's a secret agent.
That's more likely.
All planned.
Can you envision him being the one getting burned on a game-clinching touchdown, not unlike who was our old safety? I'm forgetting him. That's in Miami right now.
Jordan Poyer.
Jordan Poyer, yeah.
Yes.
After the game, he says, "Go Bills," and then we celebrate.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome, man. It would be great.
What wouldn't be awesome?
I hope
what wouldn't be awesome is losing our 3rd consecutive division, not just losing, 4 consecutive divisionals, but 3 consecutive divisional games at home to different teams and different quarterbacks. I mean, I know we don't want to talk about narratives, but my goodness, what kind of questions will we have to ask about this team afterwards? If that
Mike mentioned it earlier too, is that the narrative's out of this game. Like, next week, whoever loses this game, we're not going to talk about the AFC Championship game. We're going to be talking about what do Lamar Jackson and or Josh Allen have to do to get over the hump. That's going to be the narrative going into the championship games next week. It's going to be ridiculous. Said,
this should really be the AFC Championship. It's like I said about, Brady Manning and Roethlisberger, you can't see all 3 of them in the AFC Championship at the same time. Someone's going to have to get left by the wayside.
Listen, that's why I have this. The reason I did Bills face the Ravens in their 3rd game of the year, because they're 2-0 in game of the year so far. They can go 3-0, and then next week it'll be another game of the year against the Chiefs. That wasn't game of the year. No, that wasn't game of the year. Where the Rams were like 7-6 or 8-7, whatever their record was.
Okay, so it's
wasn't
like
the same.
the hype has to match.
Yeah, we're talking about big, and then it's a Super Bowl. That's the ultimate game of the year. The Bills will be 4-0 going in game of the year. So I'm just
5-0 is all I'm hearing.
That's all exactly.
Honestly, can you even imagine like the Bills in the Super Bowl? I
Yes.
feel like
Yes.
no,
I've seen it.
I'm just saying like as like I think Jake and Mike, you guys were probably alive for one of them. How old are you guys?
Nope.
No,
96,
all four, baby.
96.
So, like, I mean, having been alive for 3 of the 4 Super Bowls, and having no recollection of any of them because I was a baby, a toddler, and a 3-year-old, like I just can imagine like the day of the Super Bowl, like all the hype, the 2 weeks of it, like it would feel like surreal. Like I'd be like and like it would be like when you get like a PS2 for Christmas, and like that's what you're dreaming of. Like it'd be like I don't even know if I would like. I'd then wake up and be like, did this all happen? Like, damn. I hope it happens.
I can't really have too much of a good perspective on this because mine is so unique. The first 4 Bills Super Bowls were the first 4 Super Bowls I ever watched. Like it was the first time I ever started paying that close attention to the Bills. I can recall like a few odd games in '89. I have vague recollections of the '88 championship game against the Bengals that they lost, but I didn't watch a Super Bowl until Super Bowl 25. And it seems so normalized by year 4, but by year 4, when Thurman unfortunately fumbles the ball and who was it? James Washington returns it for a touchdown. I run up to my room, crying my eyes out. It's 13-13 at that point with a whole half of football to go. Me at this age, I'd be like, okay, that sucks, but we still have a lot of football to play. And I'm upstairs, thinking it's over. My mom and dad coax me down, and then the Cowboys proceed to go right down.
And then you were right. And
then I go right back up to my room and I don't come down for the rest of the game. I don't have any recollection of the rest of the second half of Game 4. The rest of that, I didn't watch the Redskins game because for some reason I had a vague feeling that the Redskins were just going to run over the Bills. And I just happened to, that was the one game we watched at my aunt's house where my cousins had Nintendo and I didn't have Nintendo. So I spent the whole game downstairs playing Nintendo while the Bills got their asses kicked by the Redskins. But I digress.
Good move. That was a smart move by young Mike, honestly. Buffalo Sports does this to people, man, because I have a very similar experience with a Sabres playoff loss in 2001 to the Penguins, where I stormed upstairs and said, I'm never watching hockey again. And I wish I could go grab that kid by the face and say, listen to yourself in this moment. Quit this fucking
24
team.
years later.
Don't ever do this to
Serious
yourself.
Asperitis Game 7 clincher in overtime.
I am. Yes. I went to my first Sabres game is a game in that series. And my mom and I end up sitting in the middle of a Pittsburgh bus. And I got bullied by 16 Pittsburgh fans who were drunk off blue lights the whole game. They were throwing the Mew jerseys on me. It was terrible. So I really hate the Penguins, guys. That's basically what it comes down to. But yes, so Buffalo Sports is pure torture. That's what
I have the same vibes off of that, except my version of that, since every Buffalo Sport was cheeks at the time, was when we went to Oakland that year when Rex Ryan, I think, was the head coach.
Oh, yeah.
Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback. We're up big at halftime. We choke it away. Latavius Murray goes for like 175. Marquette King is stunting on them hoes by throwing the flag. I was in tears. I thought that year we were at least just breaking the streak, because every single year they'd show that stupid graphic, longest streak playoff drought in the Big Four, and there we were. And then my dad's like, oh, we're the biggest joke. And then like somehow it came back on me, like I can control that. But still, that was my version of what you guys were talking about.
We're all there. Mike, what's yours? What's your torturous Buffalo Sports moment? Let's get the
here. It's probably 13 seconds, just because at that point you really thought it was like back-to-back AFC Championship game appearances. I remember no goal in '99 in the Stanley Cup Finals, but like as a young kid, like it was like, oh, we're getting screwed over. Oh, that's what's happening. And then like Music City Miracle happened within like 6 months of that. So I think that was a good introduction to being a Buffalo Sports.
That's true. That's a pretty good one.
And then in like the next year in the playoffs for the Sabres, They were playing the Flyers. It was either next year or the year after.
I know what
The
you're talking about
Flyers
here.
scored a goal through the side of the net that they didn't even. They had video review at the time, and they didn't even notice it until like
My
2 minutes later, when Dominic Hasek literally is pointing to the referees, like, "Look, there's a hole in the net." That must have been. Yeah,
I hope my dad is listening to this show right now. I hope he's still watching, because there is a very famous story in the Micah household of my dad calling the Wachovia Center and asking to speak to Gary Bettman because there was a hole in that. He wanted to let him know. And he said, at the very least, can you send me your rule book and show me where the rule is that the puck can go inside of the net? And he still has not gotten said rule book from HL offices.
You know what, though? Like, a lot of them I've moved past, because it's like, you think about it, the Sabres weren't going to go to the Cup that year. That was frustrating, but they weren't going to win it. Like, the Music City Miracle, that might have, like, stunted the chance at a run. Like, that Bills defense was insane that year. But, like, the other moments that, like, I think about, like, 2004 when the Bills lost to the Steelers backups to cost them a chance.
Yeah.
That hurts, but were they going to win it? I don't know.
They were pretty hot at that point. They were blowing teams out
they
for
were
like
blowing
5 or
teams
6
out.
games.
What really sucks for like Buffalo sports fans is that like we only have 2 teams. Like, so a lot of these major markets, they have at least 4 teams. They might have 2 sports in a couple of the leagues. So they have like 5, 6, 7 teams that over the course of 10 years, like they have 70 opportunities, 60 opportunities to win a championship. We got 20. And normally at any given time, one of our teams sucks. So like you can really just cut that in half. We just don't have the same amount of opportunities for championships.
That's true.
Which is why in Buffalo, like we say we'd like a die for a championship, because like we realize like we could go another like our entire life without winning one. While like these people in bigger markets, they have so many opportunities in various sports. Like you live in New York City, you know you're going to have a parade at some point. Like you just what team and when. Like us, it's not guaranteed, and that's what kind of sucks. Like is knowing like it's going to be really difficult. And like these leagues just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, I don't think like fans think about that enough. Like you win a Super Bowl, that means you finished on top out of 32 teams. So like all teams equal, you have like a 3-4% chance, like a 3-point-something% chance. If your team is even good, like we're talking like we can win the Super Bowl when the metrics say like the Bills have like a 15% chance. Like we're one of the best teams in football. We have the second best quarterback in football this year, according to the national media voters. And yet we still only have a 15% chance of winning the Super Bowl. Like this crap is hard. And you think about it. Say you do 13-4 every year, which you're not going to. So you're saying that you got 20% every single year to win it for maybe a 10-year period. There's still a good chance you never win one. Which is, and then you have teams like the Chiefs win 3. Like, it just sucks. Like the odds are forever against you for the most part.
Yeah, that's why, you know, the thing of be good for a long time and get lucky is like the ring true in the NFL, because it's so damn hard to get up there. But we're done thinking about this negativity, though. I know we'll get to the comments.
Saying about how he felt the most empty at wide right. Funny story about wide right. My first Super Bowl watching, I was all of maybe 10 years old. When that kick happened, I just turned around. I hugged my godmother, my great aunt, and I just gave her a big hug and closed my eyes. I was being a little bit melodramatic because I thought that's what you did in those big situations. But I didn't even see the kick. I just remember turning around, my dad yelling, "No, no!" And I barely saw the ball dropping as it, had already passed the uprights. So every time I see that replay, I'm almost transfixed. I'm like, "Oh, that happened. Mm-hmm. That's what happened."
Guys,
now I feel trauma that I wasn't even alive for at the time.
You guys know how much of a sicko? You know how much of a sicko I am? Is my grandma has that game on tape. She has all the Super Bowls on VHS recorded for some reason. And I watched that whole game start to finish, commercials and all, one day. I was sick home, didn't have anything to do.
I recorded that game too, but I never watched as much as the AFC Championship versus the Raiders.
I'm sure that one was a little bit more enjoyable than my experience. In the third quarter, I forgot that I was watching a game that was like I was like 10 years old. I forgot I was watching a game, and I had the realization, oh, wait, the Bills lose this game, and I didn't understand how. And then I understood how by the end. So that's how much that's real psycho behavior. I hope I've moved past that. I don't watch 13 seconds highlights anymore. But I do remember my mom looked at me very ominously and said, "That's a lot of time, though." And I said, is it a lot of time? It was a lot of time.
You know,
Evidently,
you look
he was
back
a
at-
psychic in that moment.
You look back hindsight on 13 seconds, you're like, it's Pat Mahomes. He has 2 timeouts. And at that time, he has Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
And
Like,
Tyreek Hill had just scored in like a 70-yard
yeah,
touchdown.
like, I'll be real. If you put the Chiefs in that same exact situation, ball on the 25-yard line, now it'd be 30, 2 timeouts. I'm feeling like they're going to have another attempt at a field goal. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was just at that time, that was something that like no one had ever like seen before. Now it's
Well,
like,
and we just were like it was right there in front of us. We're like, we're gonna beat this team. It's over. All it is this little bit. Like if it's a regular game, you're like, okay, this could happen probably more. But like we were all so excited and like emotional and riding the roller coaster.
let's be real. 13 seconds. Bills are ahead of Baltimore. They have the ball on the 25-yard line, 2 timeouts. We're gonna feel like we're gonna like allow it.
I might leave the house and just come back.
We won't
like,
be feeling
10
good
minutes
unless
later.
it's a 2-score game.
Like, no, would be even worse, kind of like just think about this. Ball's at midfield. It's Hail Mary time.
All right, no. So let's hit. Would you hit the button right now for all of you, and then let's get our predictions and get out of here so Bunt can go bowl his heart out tonight. Justin Tucker lining up for a 56-yard field goal. Bills up 30-28. 2 seconds.
I'm not hitting the button. He's gonna make it.
You're not hitting the button? Okay.
I'm not. He's
Partham?
gonna make it.
You know what? In this setting, at home, with our winds, with our temperature, with the way he's been this year, you know what? I'll take it.
Did you remember
Partham?
Elliott and Philly?
I'm hitting the button.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
hit
the
Mike
book
is
says hit.
changing. Mike, we
The
have to
book says hit it.
introduce the idea to our mind that he will miss this kick and the Bills will win.
Oh my
That's what
goodness.
we're doing here. Hit the button.
You
Mike.
guys won't be at the stadium suffering.
No, I won't. I will be in my apartment, warm.
When you get mad and sad when he makes the kick, you just turn it off and you can go to sleep.
Enjoy the ride home.
I'm gonna freeze my butt off at the stadium for another 2 hours, crying, like, having like
That would be
Ravens
the
fans trash talk. Every
Mike,
Bills
how
fan.
long would the post-game post take to go up? At least over under 25 minutes.
May
You know,
never
I
go
actually
up.
did a really solid
It
job.
may never go up. Mike just walks. He just leaves. We never hear from Mike again.
That'd be the last time Mike ever.
It's no words. It's just you walking out of the stadium, and then we just never hear from Mike Bunt again.
That would actually be pretty good. Like you see me like just
Yeah,
leaving,
really dramatic. though.
I fade into the darkness, and you're just like, huh? That was the last time
Well, that's
anyone
it.
ever saw Mike Bunt.
It's not gonna happen though. You're gonna be euphoric. You're gonna be screaming, yelling, having a great time because the Bills are gonna win.
There's 2 reactions. I either have like my phone and I'll have like the very humble like another year, another disappointing finish in the playoffs, or it's gonna be like bring on the Chiefs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
there we
all or
go.
nothing right now with how confident we feel against the Chiefs, having beaten them convincingly earlier this year, or another divisional exit at home for a 3rd consecutive year. It feels like this is either going to be another version of purgatory, even though it's a much more advanced one than not having a quarterback for 17 odd years or wherever, or we're going to be one step from the Super Bowl, for crying out loud.
So no faith in the Texans. We got no Texans.
Dude,
love
if
in
the Texans win, if the Texans win, it's already like
The Texans, the Chargers Chargers that game. They gave the game to the Texans.
Yards
They
per
Chargers-
pass already
they charge
tweeted,
are hard.
if the Texans win and the Bills play the Texans, the Bills would be 8-point favorites in the AFC Championship at home.
That's
over.
crazy.
So let's
That's
hope that
terrifying.
happens.
That screams upset.
Okay, I gotta make my pick because I gotta go.
Yes.
Only
yeah,
if they're
let's get outta
double-digit
here.
favorites.
So I said yesterday because of Vegas, I was leaning towards the Bills, but I'm really like I'll be real. Like the Ravens scared the crap out of me. I wasn't gonna make a pick this week because I really didn't want to. I'm gonna say Ravens 27-24.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
guys. I gotta go, but I'm gonna just cry as I go to bowling tonight.
No, you go bold at 300.
I retract that. I'm not going to say that. I'm taking it back. I'm not making a pick. I'm just going to
Okay.
Pick
say
was already made.
We already heard you pick. Dear God. We'll see you, Mike. We'll see you next week celebrating an AFC championship
Yes,
win
sir.
for the Buffalo Bills. I'm kicking him out. He's got to go. He's got to go take a break, regroup. All right, Carson or Mikey, how you doing? How you feeling? What's the score?
Actually, I was going to say 27-24 myself in favor of the Bills.
Oh boy.
I mean, I figure this is going to be a tight game. It's going to come down to a final possession. It's going to come down to us with our hearts in our throat. I'm afraid. I think I'm confident enough in our defensive personnel. A healthy defensive personnel, not just for a return game against the Ravens from earlier this year, but for the last couple of playoff years when it seems like guys up and down the defensive fronts have just been our best guys like Milano and other guys have been missing in action. But with the exception of Ray Davis, everybody on both sides of the ball is present and accounted for. So if we're going to die, we're going to die on our feet this time. But I don't predict that just yet this time. I think it's going to be 27-24. Bills, that is.
A few weeks ago, I wrote an article saying the Bills are destined for a playoff run this year. I still think that. They've been good lately. I don't think they've played their best ball, however. The Ravens, they're on an absolute tear. Bad matchup. However, is this the Bill? I don't know. To me, this is our Super Bowl. I think if we win this game, I think this is the year where we make the run to the Super Bowl. We've been against the Chiefs so many times in similar situations. I think we beat them. With that said, though, give me the Ravens 34-27.
It wouldn't be the Pay the Bills podcast if Carson didn't pick against the Bills in this game. So you honestly just gave me the biggest sigh of relief I've had for this game all week that you picked against the Bills, Carson. So thank you for that. I am picking the Buffalo Bills 34-31. The Ravens will have the ball with a chance to tie or win in the last couple minutes, and Lamar Jackson is going to turn the ball over. That is how I think this season ends.
You think DeMar Hamlin? Would that be story?
No, I don't think DeMar. I think it'll be Von Miller. Would be sick. I think it's TB. I think it's Bernard off a tipped pass from Daquan Jones into Terrell Bernard's hands is what we get. And that's how it ends.
We could come back to this moment in about 3 days.
Yeah, we can. 30, but I think this is a shootout. I think 27-24. I think it could be in that range too, but I think they both get to 30s. This is going to be a classic. I think Lamar and Allen ball out, but I take the Bills at home. I can't wait. I'm nervous, but I can't wait. This is what we like.
What you live for? Yeah.
Pardon my take was talking about too. This is what you grind all the hours for. This is what we watch week 1, week 2. This is what we're sitting there watching all these games for, because it pays off when you get to a game like this and you have this moment. You got to cherish it. Enjoy it. Even if it does go. Hey, 3 for 68, Carson. 3 for 68 and a ton. That was crazy.
Fantasy nightmare.
I'm ready, boys. All right. We will be back next week discussing the Bills win an AFC championship. I'm not allowing myself to say anything else. On that note, we will see you all then. And
Let's go Bills.